Snowflakes fall upon the town. Lights are twinkling all around. Children's laughter fills the air.
Christmas is around the corner, and I can show you just how easy it is to make these incredible ornaments with your xTool machine, either for business or personal use. We'll get started with the xTool F1 Ultra, and in order to process these Christmas ball ornaments on the F1 Ultra without the RA2 rotary module, we're going to need some kind of a fixture. I'll be using my fixture adapter that allows the use of regular F1 size fixtures on the F1 Ultra, and the best part here is that the adapter is adjustable, so whether you're using fixtures from me or another brand, or perhaps ones you've even made yourself, they should all fit. You can run those fixtures one at a time in the center, or you can switch over to grid mode and run a 2x2 grid of identical fixtures for maximum efficiency. I'll put links to this kit in the video description down below, so now that you know what we're using, let's go ahead and get started with the Christmas ball fixture. And this accommodates 2.5 inch or 65mm Christmas balls. I'll be demonstrating with this size for the rest of the video, but I will also have a roughly 3 inch or 80mm Christmas ball fixture available on my website as well. With the ornament mounted in the jig, we need to focus our laser on the top of the ball, and rather than align the red and blue dots perfectly, I'm going to move the red dot down just a little bit to focus slightly into the ball. This should help compensate a little bit for the curvature of that surface. As our graphic extends outwards, it will move down the surface of that ball. Then we can hop into xTool Creative Space, and they've got a new feature called AI Make. They've got a contest right now going on. You could win up to $6,000, so go check that out. I'll probably have a video on that in the near future. Now on the very first ball, I'm going to be running a material grid test array, and I would highly recommend you guys do the same thing if you're using an ornament with a different surface finish. And the other thing I would highly recommend is to not forget to turn on your fume extractor or filtration system or inline fan like I did here. You can see the smoke lingering, and the paint on these glass Christmas balls really smells. One way to avoid forgetting to turn it on is by using the xTool AP2, which is their brand new Bluetooth controlled air purifier. The Bluetooth dongle plugs into the back of the xTool F1 Ultra as well as all of their newer machines, and you can control the airflow level directly inside of xTool Creative Space, or you can just set it and forget it with the auto setting. If you're eyeing the new AP2 or xTool's new inline fan, the IF2, which is their newest and most powerful one, I've got adapters for you to upsize to 4-inch hose. The adapters fit both the intake and exhaust sides of the AP2 and the IF2, so now you can use 4-inch hose that comes in longer sizes like this one here. I'll put a link to this high quality stuff in the video description down below so you can reach your machines in more remote places. The xTool hoses are generally kind of short, so it just gives you more options. With that safety message out of the way, we'll take a look at the Christmas ornament that I've just run with the material test array. And if you didn't catch it in my screen capture earlier, I'm using the blue laser for these Christmas ornaments, and I think the best results here came at 1700 millimeters per second at 60% power, 300 lines per centimeter. So I'll load up a new glass ball, and immediately the one thing that I noticed with the F1 Ultra is the perspective of the camera on taller objects. So with the ball loaded inside of the fixture, it's best if we use some sort of a template here to align our graphic. This digital template is provided with the Christmas ball fixture from my website embracemaking.com, and all I need to do here is center it both horizontally and vertically, as the Christmas ball is also completely in the center of our workspace. And then I'll turn the processing of the template off, and I've locked it in place. And now I've loaded in my Santa Claus graphic. I've placed that graphic inside of the green circle, which is the recommended processing area, and I'm going to set this vector graphic to the parameters that I talked about earlier. So 60% power, 1700 millimeters per second at 300 lines per centimeter with a single pass. I double checked my positioning by using the framing feature, and now I'm going to go ahead and process this image. Now this time I remembered to turn my filtration system on, so you'll see the smoke being dissipated. And if you're wondering why I'm not running the AP2 right now, is because I've got it hooked up to my xTool S1, which we'll cover later in this video. Checking out the result of our work, everything looks really nice. The engraved area of the graphic looks glossy and shiny. It doesn't look like we've processed, damaged, or cracked any of the glass. The idea is that we just want to burn the paint away and not produce enough localized heat that we're going to mark the glass in any sort of way. Now, one of the unique things about my fixture is that it also allows you to flip the Christmas ball upside down. So it's got a ring right in the center, which is going to wrap around the stem of the ball, and we'll be able to align and process a graphic directly on the bottom of the ornament. For this demonstration, I'm just going to head into the xTool shape library, and in the festival holiday section, I'm going to find a snowflake. I'll position and resize that snowflake directly in the center of the template, and then just go back to the settings that we've already used: 60% power, 1700 millimeters per second, 300 lines per centimeter, and then we can process this. I added this feature of the fixture so that you could get maximum coverage on these Christmas balls. It's very quick and convenient to rotate the balls from front, back, left, right, and now upside down, so that you can get as creative as possible with your designs. The bottom of the ball is also the perfect location for your own logo if you want to brand your ornaments, or perhaps if you have a standard design that goes all around the ball. On the bottom, this is where you can offer personalization for people. Moving on, the next example here is going to be the same size ball in a green semi-gloss finish. Nothing about the setup procedure here is going to change, so I'm going to run through this very quickly. We're just going to place and position our graphic directly in the center of the ball. And even though this is a different color, I'm going to go with the exact same settings of 60% power, 1700 millimeters per second, and 300 lines per centimeter. Green and red are probably going to be the two most popular colors that you're going to find on these Christmas balls, so this will give you a pretty good jumping off point for venturing into other colors that you might find. I'll have links in the video description down below for some recommended sources for these materials. And you can see here that with the green ornaments, the exact same settings from the red ornaments work just fine. Now in this workpiece here, I'm just going to take it, I'm going to flip it around 180 degrees, quickly place it back in the fixture, close the lid, double tap on the green button on the xTool F1 Ultra, and that's going to run the exact same job as last time. And this is just to demonstrate how quickly and easily you can process both sides of an ornament with a fixture to increase your efficiency and increase your output. And if I were doing an entire batch of these, I would just keep flipping back and forth between all of the balls, getting the front and back side finished. And then, as I mentioned earlier, once I was done with all of the front and backs, I would flip all of the balls upside down and head back into xTool Creative Space, where I could set up my logo for branding. Most of you running businesses, either big or small, will likely have your own company logo in the form of a graphic that you could import for this step here, or you can use the text tool inside of xTool Creative Space and just write out your company name or business name and place it directly in the center of the template. The text tool inside of xTool Creative Space produces the text in vector format, so we can use the exact same proven settings that we've already used for the other graphics. And then going back to the approach of batch processing these Christmas ornaments, I would now just run this job over and over and over again on the bottoms of all of the Christmas balls. This method is obviously much more efficient than doing the front, the back, and then changing the graphic for the bottom for each of the balls. You're going to be much more efficient running the same graphic on repeat by double clicking the button on the front of the F1 Ultra to run the same job again. Since these ornaments are round, another way we can process them is with the RA2 rotary module, and I've got this set up with my RA2 kit specifically for the F1 Ultra. I've got an entire video about using the RA2 with the F1 Ultra. I'll link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen right now, and it's geared more towards tumblers and water bottles, but you can also use this setup with the Christmas balls, and you can simply just grab the stem of the ball. The caps on these ornaments can be removed by just simply pulling them off. And in the same way that we focused the laser using the fixture, we're going to do the exact same thing here with the RA2 module. So I'll set the focus just a little bit down from the very top of the ball. Then inside of xTool Creative Space, we do have to change our processing mode, and we're going to switch that over to the chuck mode. And now that we're in rotary chuck mode, you'll see that we need to enter in the diameter of our workpiece, and in this case we're using those 65mm Christmas balls. I'm going to be performing a full wrap design on this workpiece, and I'll link to another video in the top right hand corner of the screen where in the past I've showed you guys how to produce full wrap graphics. And that video was also geared more towards tumblers and water bottles, but the exact same approach applies here for Christmas ornaments. Now, if you're using a graphic that you didn't make and you're trying to ensure that it's going to be centered when you wrap it around the entire object, one thing you can do here is just create a rectangle where the height should be the diameter, so 65mm times pi 3.14. Then you take that rectangle and you place it up against the green center line of rotation in xTool Creative Space, and then you take a graphic and center it within that. And if the spacing between the top of the rectangle and the first snowflake and the bottom of the rectangle and the bottom snowflake looks to be about the same as the spacing between each of the snowflakes or whatever object that you're engraving, then the pattern should look more or less seamless when it's done. In terms of settings, on the F1 Ultra, you're limited to 400 millimeters per second while using the rotary module. So I've gone as fast as possible and I've set the power to 20%. We're still using 300 lines per centimeter. And after the job was done, at first I thought my settings might be off a little bit because the graphics were looking slightly gray, but you might just need to give them a quick wipe with a wet cloth. After the quick wipe down, we can inspect the full wrap pattern, and as you can see as I'm rotating the ball around, you can't at all tell where the first snowflake started and the last one finished. And of course, the ability to do this all in one shot is the advantage of using the rotary module. Next, we can move on to the xTool S1. This is a much different machine than the xTool F1 and F1 Ultra, but we can still use the exact same fixture to process these items in the most efficient manner possible. Now, the only catch with the S1 series is that it's not intended to do very thick or tall materials right out of the box. You will need to get the xTool S1 riser base in order to do materials that are as tall as these Christmas balls inside of a fixture. Now, I've got the 40-watt module and I've already run a material test array on these Christmas balls, and we'll just skip right into some examples. So I've got the laser crosshairs of the S1 centered directly on top of the Christmas ornament. And in a similar way to what we've just done with the F1 Ultra, I'm going to import the template that comes with the Christmas ornament fixture, but instead of centering it in my workspace, I've centered it in relation to the crosshairs. And now I'm going to take my graphic and I'm going to resize and reposition it into the center of my template. And if you guys aren't already aware, within xTool Creative Space, you can bump around either the template or the graphic using the arrows on your keyboard to make very small adjustments. The next critical step in our setup is to set the focusing height. And to do that, we can click the auto measure button at the top right hand corner of the screen, and the xTool S1 is going to probe the top of our workpiece. Now, in order to compensate for the curvature of the ball, I'm going to override this number. And I'm going to add anywhere between 1 to 1.5 millimeters, depending on the size of the graphic. I've got this graphic here set up fairly large, so it extends just past the edges of the green circle, which represents the recommended processing area within the template. So I've added a little more than 1.5 millimeters, and I've bumped the focus up to 9 millimeters. So it's focused a little further into the ball. Now, I've got the 40-watt module on my S1, so I had to bump the power down to 20% at 600 millimeters per second. And for this first run, I tried 300 lines per centimeter. And even though I already ran a material test array, after running your very first graphic that isn't just a bunch of rectangles, you do have to do a little bit of course correction. In this case, I got the sense that some areas were over-processed, and I think I could fix that by taking the lines per centimeter down to 200. You might find that some materials have some inconsistencies in terms of the thickness of the coating or the paint. So for my experimentation, I just found that it was best not to dip below 20% on the power. If you're running the 20-watt module on the xTool S1, then you won't have this problem, as you'll have your setting probably around 40% power. The other thing worth noting is the intricate detail in those small snowflakes. On the 40-watt module, it's got a larger laser dot size, and if you're running the 20-watt module, you've got a smaller dot size, so you should be able to retain more detail. The other thing to keep in mind is that the snowflakes are on the outer periphery of the graphic, which is where the surface of the sphere really starts to fall off. So the focus in this area is not going to be the best, and I would recommend graphics that have small details somewhere in the center instead. So we'll try some new settings on a red ornament, and you can see that another way to position your fixture inside of the xTool S1 is on top of the honeycomb panel. I can securely keep it in place with the magnetic retainers, and it is going to require a little bit more height, so I've took the pan that goes inside of the riser base and moved it down one level. And back inside of xTool Creative Space, again, I'm going to use the exact same approach here, where I'm going to center the template and center the graphic with respect to the red crosshairs. And now, from lessons learned in the previous example, this time around I'm going to change the settings up just a little bit. Again, the power is going to be 20%. The speed is also not going to change at 600 millimeters per second, but we're going to bump that line per centimeter setting down to 200. I've already used the autofocus to probe the top of the Christmas ball, and now I'm going to change that distance and override it to 8 millimeters, which is not much more than what it had measured. In retrospect, I could have increased that by another 0.5 millimeter to improve the focus on the outer edges of the graphic. But I think with the new lines per centimeter setting, this thing is going to turn out looking quite a bit better than the first one anyways. And in this case here, it seemed like my intuition was correct, as the finish of the engraved area was very glossy, almost mirror-like. Of course, this is exposing the glass underneath, and that's why it looks like that. The edges all looked crisp and the details were still there. None of them appeared to be lost or muddy looking. So for the 40-watt module, those would be the settings that I would recommend. Moving on to the rotary module, I will reiterate that you do need the xTool riser base, and in this case you can see I've removed the bottom pan, and I've got this alignment bracket screwed to my work surface that's going to be included with my upcoming S1 RA2 kit. That rotary kit will also come with some additional riser feet, so you can do very large round workpieces with the S1, such as 40-ounce tumblers. For the Christmas balls, the leg extensions are being used right now, but they are not necessary. All we need to do is align the crosshairs with the center axis of rotation of the RA2. This is a quick snapshot of those riser feet, and the advantage of these is they screw to your work table or your spoil board, so your machine does not move with respect to the RA2 alignment bracket, and everything is very rigid and repeatable. Now inside of xTool Creative Space, we're going to use the exact same approach as we did without the RA2, so one of the first things that we need to do is focus our laser, and we're going to use the auto measure function for that. The S1 will probe the top of the ball, and now we can add again a few more millimeters here to the measurement because we are going to be engraving down the surface of that ball. And I'm going to make a judgment call here and only add about 3/4 of a millimeter or so. Then I'm going to type in the diameter of the ball, which is again 65 millimeters. And I'm going to bring in my full wrap graphic, which is very similar to the one that I did using the F1 Ultra, except now I've just staggered the snowflakes from side to side a little bit. Interestingly, when using the S1, the max speed with the RA2 is 600 millimeters per second, whereas on the F1 Ultra, it was only 400. So we're going to crank this thing up to the max speed of 600. I'm going to reduce the power to 20%, and the lines per centimeter will be 200. And you'll notice that these are the exact same settings as what we had done with the fixture when the ball was static. I went ahead and started this job, and right away quickly realized that I was about to have a catastrophic problem. As the workpiece gets rotated around, so do the chuck jaws, and the laser module overshoots the ball quite a bit, and at some point those two will come in contact with one another because the jaw sticks up so much higher than the surface of the ball. I had to cancel the job before those two pieces made contact with one another, and I refixtured the ball with these ball end arms that I usually see set up for things like rings and jewelry, and this solved the clearance issue, so hopefully you guys can learn from my near miss. Now it's time to take a quick look at the result, and not surprisingly, because again the material settings were the exact same as the static setup, which worked out quite well, the Christmas ball looks excellent. The graphic that I'm using in this example is pretty simple, but all of the details of those snowflakes were retained, and I know you guys are so creative that you'll come up with your own very stunning designs that will far exceed what I'm demonstrating here. At this point, you can put the cap back on and admire your work, or you can take your Christmas balls to another level and use some paint on the inside surface of these balls, because remember, these are glass balls. So once you use your engraver to remove the paint, you can technically see right inside of them. And if you have a very large design with another one on the other side, you might even be able to see it. So all we need to do now is just remove the cap off the top of the Christmas ornament. And now we can grab some paint, and I'm just going to be using this flow acrylic. It's just regular acrylic paint, and I've added a little bit of water to make it flow better. You might want to experiment a little bit with the amount of water that you add, because adding too much water will affect the chemistry of the paint and it won't dry properly. But once you figure out the proper consistency, you can just simply pour it inside of the ball. Rotate the ball around and the paint should flow around the inside surface of the ball. And if you've got one of my Christmas ball fixtures, you can even use the fixture to let it sit so the paint settles down on one side of the ball. And after a few minutes, you'll have excellent coverage around your graphic. Now in this example, I've used white paint, but you can use any color you want to add more contrast against the color of the Christmas ornament that you're using. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This video is being posted up around Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So if you guys are in the market for an xTool machine, I've got an article on my website with links to the various xTool machines with pre-applied discount codes, as well as additional discount codes that I've been updating that page with. And if you've already got the xTool S1, be sure to check back regularly, because I've got the S1 RA2 video coming very soon, as well as the RA2 upgrade kit specific to the S1, which I'm going to be dropping very soon. And of course, the easiest way to never miss a thing is to just hit that subscribe button down below.
Windows frosted, gifts are waiting. Time together, celebrating. Fireplace where hearts